My name is Dr. Rick Seguil.
And action. Hey, Jay had a... This is Kirk again.
Stress and investment.
And action. Hey everyone, it's Dr. Rick. And Sandy had a question about working out fasted. Fasting is something that, I just realized I've got my beard on here. I'm off work for a while reviewing for my boards, another board. And it's also Men's Month, so you're supposed to be able to grow hair on your face for Men's Month. Anyway, if this is the first time you're finding me, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and the alert button to find out when I do new videos. And if you like the video, thumbs up, please. So, working out fasted. If you are not used to working out fasted, you're probably not going to like it. I usually work out in the morning at like 5-ish, and I happen to also be an intermittent vegetarian faster. So I eat from 12 noon until 8 p.m. and I have 20 minutes to eat. This is I packed something so I can eat on the way home because I was already hungry and feeling the hunger hormones start up. And this is I have a Beyond Burger in here. So I'm going to put that down real quick. Probably mix it in with some carbohydrates so I can sleep a little better, because carbohydrates usually results in insulin. Protein, which is what the Beyond Burger is, that's mostly protein, about 20 grams, I think, or is it 15? Well, that hit of protein technically won't stimulate insulin as much. So if you have a sleep disorder, I'd rather have you eat protein in the morning, protein for lunch, and then carbohydrate, healthy carbs for dinner. But we're getting off topic. Working out fasted. So if you're not used to it, as I mentioned in the beginning, you will probably not like it. However, there are some benefits to working out fasted. And I wanted to, this was a poster board that I used for another video. I don't remember which one. I think it was L-carnitine. Yeah, unboxing L-carnitine. So I have this picture of a cell. This is a cell and cell wall. These are channels, or protein channels on the cell wall that allow things to go in and out of the cell. You have to have a cell wall made up of lipids or fat, because you have to keep the stuff on the inside from leaking out to the stuff on the outside. And plus there's a lot of enzymatic processes that occur in here with DNA, ribosomes, lysozymes, enzyme creations that have to take place in a controlled environment. So all this stuff that's really important stays in the cell. But because of all that activity that happens in the cell, not only dividing the nucleus, but making proteins and enzymes and hormones, you have to have fuel. The typical fuel that you probably know of is glucose. So, sorry, it's a little bit bright. So glucose, I put a leaf, because I'm a vegetarian. But glucose comes in through the cell, through the cell port. Think of it as a doorway, only if there's insulin around. You have to have insulin from the pancreas. And check out my previous video. I'll try to put a link down below. Insulin resistance was that video. It should explain to you how that works. But if there is no fuel around, then there probably won't be any insulin around, because the pancreas makes insulin. Insulin is made so that the glucose or the fuel can get into the cell. And if the pancreas senses that there's no food being digested, it's not going to make insulin. So it's as easy as that. Now, if you eat before you work out, then you're going to have, most likely, if you're a standard athlete, you're probably going to be carbing up. That's the 70s thing of what to do with fuel. Carbing up a couple of days before, or morning of before your exercise, your run or your workout, or your swim or your ride. So if you are standard carb loader, then you'll have glucose, which is a carbohydrate, and you'll have insulin, and you'll get into the cell. And that's cool, because you'll have the fuel available, especially if you're super skinny or very lean. You'll have fuel available to get this cell. Just consider this a muscle cell. All cells are schematically about the same. They have mitochondria, they have nucleus, they have a whole bunch of endoplasmic reticulum and enzymes in here. So, but the muscle cells are a little bit different, because as myosin and actin fibers, that's not important. Just the schematic of a cell is important. and the fact that you understand there's a wall, and the fact that there's only a certain ports that your fuel sources can come in. I just mentioned glucose, so it is good if you are in a fed state to exercise because you'll have fuel around. So the fuel will help you move, the fuel will help you burn, especially if you're an endurance athlete and you're used to carbohydrates, then that's fine. I think you'll, I remember I didn't know much when I was in college and high school. So I'd take sugar cubes, and that's the wrong kind of fuel, obviously, but take sugar cubes and eat them before, and a sandwich, and eat them before running track. But I wouldn't eat too much. Otherwise, I get stomach cramps. And if you're a tail end of a baby boomers, or maybe millennials do this now too, you're told by your parents that don't go swimming after eating because you'll get stomach cramps. And I think there's some validity to that, because if you have a full stomach, I wouldn't exercise with a full stomach, but if you have a full stomach, the stomach starts to digest, it turns on the digestive juices, it starts to melt solids, enzymatically turns it into vomit. The vomit moves into the small intestine turns on, it starts to absorb stuff. That's a lot of energy that's being used, and it's a lot of muscle work. Now, if you're suddenly going for a 25-meter swim, or attacking a hill on a bike, or you're trying to do a 5K real fast, or you're doing high-intensity interval training, your muscles will divert that fuel, glucose, that's going to the digestive tract. The stomach will not get the fuel. The muscles will say, hey, we have priority because we're running from danger. You're not really running from danger, but the muscles think you're running from danger. And they'll say, we need the blood flow. Suddenly, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, the liver, the pancreas, they get no blood flow, and they're like, hey, we got all this food. What are we going to do? Let's cramp. And that's why you get stomach cramps. So that's why it's not good to eat before going to swim or exercise. Now, that beckons, how much do you eat in a fed state before you go run, or before you swim, or before you bike, before you go work out? Well, everybody's got their tolerances. When I used to be a bodybuilder back in the day, I just happen to have that from 1982. So I worked out at Attila's gym, and I had a lot of bodybuilder friends. I took 2 titles, Mr. Natural New Jersey, Mr. East Coast, both in the summer of '82, while I was hanging out with my friends, the bouncers and the bartender at the Stardust nightclub in Wildwood, New Jersey. But I didn't know any better, and I had so much testosterone, it didn't matter what I ate. I just ate enough to get me through a 2-hour workout. So I used to work out a long time, because I did the old-fashioned thing. I didn't really push too hard like I do now. High-intensity interval training wasn't really that popular back then. Mike Mentzner, he used to do it a lot. He was a big bodybuilder, Mr. America, I think, but he was like the only one. Everybody else would do slow sets and wait, talk to girls, and then go back and talk to more girls, and then go work out. But anyway, so those cuts and that ripped state was probably because of testosterone, and I probably had a little bit of gene pool luckiness, I guess. However, so I think that back then we used to always push carbohydrates, and if we push too many carbohydrates, you'd have the stomach cramps I'm talking about. But if you got enough in, theoretically, and that's in the mind of a college and high school kid, if you got enough in, that would be charging the muscles to work out aggressively. But the workout I did back then wasn't even close to the workouts that I do now. Because data, evolution, and informatics has come really accelerated, especially with the advent of the internet and National Institute of Health. And it's easy to get good studies from good universities. So we have moved away from all athletes working out in a fed state. In fact, that's where fasted state comes in, because if you're fasted, theoretically you're also in a little bit of ketosis. If you have, my usual thing is I stop dinner at 8, so now I have 15 minutes to eat my food before the fast starts. And if you finish your food, if I finish my food at 8, I sleep overnight. I go to sleep at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, wake up at like 4:30, go work out at 5. I am probably in ketosis unless I'm totally stressed out. Then the insulin starts to secrete. But usually because I'm very used to it. I can work out and turn on my workouts. Now, with regards to intensity and muscle responsiveness, that's where you're going to have to get used to it. I don't know when I switched over to morning workouts, but when I first switched over, it was tough. It probably took me about 3 to 4 weeks to get used to it. And I think I was getting injured, truthfully. I don't remember, but it took a little bit of time before I got used to it. And I expected that because my muscles and my brain had to get used to not having any food. Well, after I was successful at working out enough times, and I actually tested my blood doing prior to my fasting mimicking diet or 5-day fast. It was in June, the first one I did with Pat. And I tested my blood. In that state, I was in a little ketosis. I think my ketosis level is 0.9, I believe. That's okay in a fasted state. But I have now got to the point post fasting mimicking diet, ketosis level of 4, I believe, or BHB of 4. Anyway, I'm getting off track. So working out in a fasted state has its benefits. Number one, you can have ketosis. And if you have ketosis and you're trying to lose weight, ketosis is when you're not burning glucose, you're burning fat. When you burn fat, you take the fat cells from your tummy, your visceral fat, and you burn it. And when you burn those triglycerides from the adipose tissue that you don't have too much of probably, you will be able to make a lot of ketones. When you make a lot of ketones, that actually is fuel for the brain and muscle. But muscle has to get used to using that fuel source. If it's not used to using that fuel source, it's going to be very difficult to switch over. That's what's called fat adapted. So, but when you are fat adapted and you're in a state of ketosis and you exercise, you will actually burn fat as your fuel source. Number one, a lot more fuel from 1 gram of fat than 1 gram of carbohydrate. And number two, you'll also lose some visceral fat. You'll also lose some subcutaneous fat, but usually the visceral fat is the one that's the damaging one, the unhealthy one. So the more you chop away at that visceral fat because you're exercising in a state of ketosis, the thinner you'll get. Your waist to hip ratio will be smaller. Your body mass index will be better. And you'll have less adipose tissue. Adipose tissue leads to estrogen for guys or too much estrogen for women. So when you just have a accelerated logarithmic improvement in health. So obviously I'm biased because I work out fasted, but this is just to give you ideas about the potential trying out of a fasted workout. Other things you can get in a fasted state when you work out, I believe that this is now anecdotal, this is me talking, I believe that I'm more in an alert state when I'm fasted because I'm hungry. And when you're hungry, there's a hunger or a hunting reflex that's started. If you watch my video that I already mentioned earlier, hunger hormone cascade, when you're hungry, that's usually secretion of ghrelin. That's one hormone that comes from the stomach. That's the ghrelin growl, I call it. You're going to be looking and thinking about getting your fuel sources in. The body, the brain will think, oh, we're going into starvation. There's no more food. Please try to get some fuel in before the prairie dies off. So it starts you thinking and hunting for food. That's why if you let that go too long and you're surrounded by potato chips, like me, I used to be, I'd eat a whole bag of family-sized potato chips because my hunger hormone cascade set itself off. But if you do it at the right time, you can do it in the form of an exercise routine. You can really get jacked up during exercise. And I also play a lot of Metallica, so I have my list of, it's called intense music to play. Versus working out after having eaten. And I think I used to do that, and it was fun, and I did fine with that kind of exercise. But to me, that's just, when you eat to full, you're satiated. And when you're satiated, it's like insulin. Insulin is just spiking high. So insulin doesn't really allow you to build muscle. It's kind of the dichotomy. It's the total opposite. Insulin will actually force you to break it. Well, it makes you put fuel into fat cells. It also makes the muscles not get as much fuel. Now let me talk about this. When you exercise, I do have videos before about exercise timing, which I'll put down below. But I believe that if you really want to exercise and you eat your protein after exercise, that would be the best idea. I've told people before, don't worry, just exercise. And because I exercise in the morning and I'm still fasted, I can't take my protein in, and it's fine. But the studies have shown if you're trying to rebuild your fuel sources post-exercise so that the muscles will build up and repair, you're supposed to take your fuel sources in within 30 minutes. If you can get protein in within 30 minutes, there's something called GLUT4 that allows stuff to go in. During that time, the protein and carbohydrate, you can refuel, you'll make a lot of glycogen for next time, rebuild and store, and you'll fix the muscle that has been damaged. You're essentially causing damage so that you can fix it, get it stronger than before, and have a lot of mitochondrial biosynthesis. The more mitochondria you have, the more power you can make. The more power you can make, the more you can lift or run or swim next time. So you can see this incremental improvement in your success of strength. You can still, as I do, you can still take advantage of eating a healthy food, or healthy nutrition plan after exercise, after 30 minutes. It's just that the muscle doesn't take it in as well. It'll still imbibe the fuel sources that it needs to rebuild, but it just, if you do it within the first 30 minutes, it sucks it in. If you do it after the first 30 minutes, after the 30 minutes, which is what I usually do, I work out at 5-ish, and I start eating at. So I eat my first meal 7 hours after I work out. Tonight, which is I got 7 minutes to eat my dinner. Tonight is late. I'm off schedule, but I'm trying to get my timing down to be really on ball and awake during my exam hours. 6-hour exam, or is it 7 hours? I forget. Anyway, so my timing's totally off. That's why I worked out. And boy, was it crowded. Good thing I did legs today. And by the way, that's funny. I was working out. I usually am a madman when I work out. I'm in and out. And the gym was crowded, so nobody does legs. So I had my machines. And I usually do back to back to back to back. This 20-year-old guy, he was pretty buff. 20-year-old guy said, "Hey man, what's your name?" I said, "Rick, Aaron." And Aaron said, "I like the way you work out, man." And I that's pretty cool. I think other young guys are watching. I didn't have time to talk to him about his workout or tell him why I was doing it or tell him how old I was. But I guess that's recognition. So thank you, Aaron. Anyway. So if I'm doing it right, I guess I'm doing it right, then maybe the young guys are taking notice. Anyway, hopefully they're taking notice on YouTube. But if your fuel source is good, then cool. If you exercise in a fed state, that's okay. Keep on doing what you're doing, Sandy. Especially if you're used to it, especially before going on the big competition that we're going on in Boston. I would say that don't change around your training routine now. I wouldn't change sneakers. I wouldn't change running shoes. I wouldn't change eating. I wouldn't change your style of running. I would just keep it. Maybe after you finish Boston, we can try 2020 to work out in a fasted state. But it takes about 2 to 4 weeks to get used to it. And you have to turn down, when you're adjusting over to a fasted exercise, you're going to have to turn down your routine, 20%, either intensity, duration, speed, just because if you don't have the fuel source, it's kind of like working out at night. Most of my folks that try to work out at night, or I ask them to work out at night, they're just too mentally fried. I'm tired when I finish clinic hours. There's nobody here in the clinic, but when I finish hours, it's like I don't want to work out. I'm beat. I'm not physically beat. I'm just mentally beat. I'm mentally challenged. But the motivation goes out the window. And if I'm not motivated, I just go to the gym and I'm not going to lift anything. My brain will say, "Okay, you're done. 1 set, no more." And it'll be like, even if I can physically do it, my brain will say no more. And if the motivation's not there, you're not going to get the build. Anyway, if you try to do your usual speed of running, your usual lift, your usual treadmill work, your usual laps in the pool, while you're adjusting over, you will probably get hurt or injured. So you're going to push muscle when it's not ready for it. I wouldn't do it. And you might be sloppy with your form. I wouldn't do it. Just turn it down a little bit for the 2 weeks. As you get used to it, then you crank it out. And you'll be able to get back not only the muscle strength you lost in the 2 weeks, that's like 20% of your muscle strength. If you're just, your quads can atrophy 20% in 1 week if they're not used. So not that you're not going to use them, but you'll probably lose a little bit of strength and size. However, when you get used to pulling it out after 2 to 4 weeks, then you can return to that girth and muscle strength and performance. Other things to do, well, I also mentioned AM and PM because typically fasted will usually be, especially if you're a family man or a family woman, you're going to have to work out fasted in the morning. It's hard to work out fasted in the evening. So AM, I think if you're poorly slept, it's going to be tough to work out. So if you have a sleep disorder, fix it. Think about medical cannabis. Fix it with Ambien. Don't take Benadryl. That's not the right thing. Don't do alcohol either. That's not the right thing either. There are medicines, trazodone if you have a little anxiety, sleep apnea testing. So all those things are important. 5-HTP, melatonin, valerian, all those things are important to kind of get the brain to calm down and sleep continuously 6 to 8 hours. If you're an athlete, I'd rather push to the 7 to 8 hour mark. If you're cutting it short, nothing less than 6, especially if you're trying to exercise. So working out in the morning, it can, whether it's fed or fasted, can be difficult if you're poorly slept. If you're poorly slept, fix that, come to see me, then you start working out in the morning. I also believe, that I did not mention this in my previous exercise timing video, the hormones are usually highest in the morning. Cortisol, which is good at times, cortisol is high, testosterone is high, estrogen is high. So I think that in the morning when your hormones are the highest is when you'll get the biggest bang for the buck as far as turning on power and strength. Area on the curve, under the curve as far as power, when the hormones are high, would be better and fuller. So yes, I did mention cortisol. So cortisol is what thyroid hormone, thyroid, cortisol, and gonadal hormones are highest in the morning because that's when you're supposed to be. Dr. Ruth says to make love in the morning because testosterone's highest if you have ED. I don't know if that's been proven, but usually I'll tell my guys when I'm testing testosterone, check it in the morning because it is highest. So there is a benefit to working out in the morning. Another thing to think about versus working out in the evening unless you're a shift worker, and that totally screws up everything. And I'm going to be doing in January something for the first responders over at College of DuPage because, man, my first responders, police and fire, are just so burned out. You can tell. Muscle responsiveness isn't there. Whether they work out fasted or fed, they just work out terribly. And they need a lot of stimulant. That's just not a good thing, you know? And there's a high occurrence of brain tumors in firefighters and for some reason. And police officers have also a high occurrence of, I think, prostate cancer, which is terrible. But anyway, I'm getting off track, sorry. So the other thing that could be nice if you're working out at night is you can sleep in the morning if you like sleeping in. Some people are night owls. Maybe that's good for you. There's also a social spot. So, like I mentioned before, at Attila's gym, it was so cool to work out because you worked out with girls too, and very fit girls. It's kind of cool to hang out and meet people. So I'm sure people do that, but I'm all business and I don't have time. So, Aaron, sorry I had to cut out, but I appreciate it, brother. So, the benefits to fed versus fasted, I think it's worth a try. What's his name? Jeff Volek and Stephen Finney did studies on athletes, both keto-adapted athletes and standard glycogen-using athletes. And both groups of elite runners did fine. One group didn't outperform the other, but they all did fine. It's just that the glucose-dependent athletes had to refuel more often than the keto-adapted athletes. So I think it might be if you're, I guess my not my plea, but my sell would be if you are trying to work out and you're also trying to fit in intermittent fasting. Don't fret. Don't worry about it. Just try to switch the exercise routine to the morning. Or if you already exercise in the morning and you're going to be doing your fasting to include the morning hours, don't worry. You can get through it. You really can. Unless your body mass index is like 23 and lower, which I don't have a lot of patients that are that low. Unfortunately, most Americans are like 30. Most athletes, especially my 50-year-olds to 60-year-olds, my group, most of us are body mass index of like 27, I believe, with a little pouch, mommy tummy or dad bod. But most of my 40 to 50-year-olds are working their asses off to try to get into a healthy state before they hit the high-risk age group of 60 to 70. So I really praise my warriors, I call them. So anyway, I hope this gives you a little idea. I just blew my window of eating. It's 8:02. So thank you for watching up until this time. If you have any comments on how you work out fasted, if you do fasted nighttime, fasted daytime, if you actually get into ketosis, if you've seen poor performance, if you've seen great performance, put them on, scroll down below all these videos and then put them on the comments down below to inform me and educate us. That'd be great. Otherwise, so technically it's 8:03, so I can scarf this down really quick. It is not good to eat your food fast because, well, it's not healthy. You're supposed to sit down. My son is at home. I'm going to try to meet him at home. I told him to go eat because I didn't want him to eat too late. Well, not supposed to eat 2 hours before you go to sleep, which is, I'm breaking all the rules here, but I'll probably stay up a little late tonight to study a bit. And, so this is my cheese substitute. This is my Beyond Burger with mayonnaise. It's obviously cheese, not anti, but non-dairy cheese, non-dairy everything. I'm sure there's dairy, that's non-dairy mayonnaise too. So I'm going to enjoy this real quick. Otherwise, I'll see you at the next Minute Clinic. Thanks.